Hello folks, I'm going to start streaming here. Today we're going to talk about the lore of D&D and how the Neverwinter MMO game decided to represent Storm King's Thunder. Storm King's Thunder is a D&D adventure that is a lot of fun, dealing all with how the giants decide to take over Faerun once more. Because they were in charge a long time ago, back in the ages when there were no real mortals around of any consequence, and it was them against the dragons. They decided they want their land back. That is, just about all of Faerun, or at least all of the Sword Coast and some of what's attached to it. I'm going to start out aboard this ship, you can see here, which is part of the Icewind Dale content that's available. And I have my paladin here again. You can see the mountain in the background, pretty sweet. Very pretty port. They did a really great job, the team, representing Icewind Dale. And when you first come to the area of Icewind Dale, you come in this region. Now, I am not going to spend much time in Icewind Dale, but I wanted to start it here to say that Neverwinter decided to implement Storm King's Thunder around a 10 towns Icewind Dale type of story. They could have gone with a number of options. If you read the hardback for Storm King's Thunder, there are options with the DM as to where the party can go, where they can start. They can start in Bryn Shander, which is where we are right now. I'll go to our map here so we can see it and look at the Icewind Dale tab. So actually no, we're not in Bryn Shander yet. We're going to go to Bryn Shander. We are in Carconig, and one of these is Lacdenishire. I forget where exactly my Icewind Dale topography, but when you do the Icewind Dale content, you do these three areas. The Storm King's Thunder 5th edition adventure deals with Bryn Shander as one of the optional starting areas, but there are two others that you can start in as well, for the part that really deals deeply with the giants and takes off. And then after that, you can decide which of the giant threats you go after, one of which is the Frost Giants. So this takes that Frost Giant story and expands on it, and it wraps it around a pretty clever device, which is that of the Ring of Winter. And so we get involved in Artist Cimber's plans. Sorry about that. Well, we'll see how we do here in this world of balancing many things from home. But let's continue here. So we are going to go from the area of Icewind Dale to the town of, or Carconig, to the town of Bryn Shander. And this is a pretty neat spectacle when you first travel to this area. We're going to start in the center of the town, but when you first come, you come off of a high road and you get to see what's really amazing here, which is that the giants have actually used the Ring of Winter. They momentarily gain it from Artist Cimber. It's our job to get it back. And they have conjured frost all around this village, all around Bryn Shander. It's a little bit, it adds to what we see in the 5th edition book by adding that Ring of Winter element. Makes it far more dangerous. And you can see people are actually frozen mid-stride as they rush to the gates, and even the giants are frozen. And whenever I do these streams, I like to comment on things that I would do as a DM, and one of them for sure would be, this is such a cool idea, right? That you come in with almost this sort of mystery. You don't know anything about the Ring of Winter yet, and you're wondering, why is everything frozen like this? Giants, townsfolk, completely frozen. And you can see here the giants have pried the gates open. The first charge went in, and everybody was just frozen solid. So that's a really neat way to begin this campaign. There are a number of things that you deal with here. You deal with the Barbarians. As in Storm King's Thunder, these are Barbarians that are ill-disposed towards you. They are enemies, and scattered throughout this area, you fight them off so that the Bryn Shander troops can regain some abilities. It's very fun terrain to look at with all these spikes of ice that have come forward and all kinds of people who are frozen in place. Really very cool. There are a couple of things that, like any kind of video game, they add pieces of content as they add new areas. So one of the fun things you can do is get a Remorhaz as a companion that travels with you and actually helps you find relics. So scattered around the terrain, there are relics from the old past when the giants ruled the land, and so when you find one, you can dig it up, and the Remorhaz actually will help you dig one up and bring one for you if it can find one. It'll let you know whether it finds one or not. Yeah, it's disappointed. It didn't find anything. I think that's pretty fun. So this is one of the areas of Storm King's Thunder in Neverwinter. Unlike the last two that we looked at, the Dreadring and Sharandar, this zone is not divided into other small zones. It's one huge area consisting of the town, and then these frozen wastes that are outside, and you help merchants and other things like that. There are big, huge battles. We can actually fight a Remorhaz here, and we will go take a look at it, see if it's kind of a fun visual for everybody. So I think of this more as the kind of thing we would use in a campaign if we want to. Oh, this is a Yeti. So we can, oh, and a Remorhaz, there it is. Yeah, if we want to take the idea of coming into a dangerous wilderness, and we are finding this attack that's happened on Bryn Shander and how mysteriously the land has been frozen, these huge spikes of ice and all that, that's a pretty cool concept to work with. You can see we've got young Remorhaz here, we've got Yetis that are fighting versus Remorhaz, and we get to take a stake in it and choose one or the other to ally with. A fun example. So there are a lot of these heroic encounters, as they call them in the game, where you fight larger creatures than you can handle on your own. You need a couple players to best it. It's probably going to take a while, so you can see the Remorhaz is pretty terrible when it fires off a bunch of fire in every direction. I do not want to stay for the entire completion of this, but it's a fun example of the neat terrain you can find. I really like, in adventures, when you have formidable beasts that you can't just take on your own. In these cases, they force you to find other players to work with. But in campaigns, they can be really neat. Like I like in Chult, you have this enormous T-Rex that's super dangerous. That's a fun thing to have. So this is the area of Bryn Shander. That is the first place we go to, and we begin uncovering what's taking place. It's mostly about protecting that town. The second place we go to is Lowerl Wood. And some of you may remember Lowerl Wood as being the place where, if you read the novels from Drizzt Do'Urden, this is where Regis likes to sit on the lake and quote-unquote fish. He's really just snoozing. But Lowerl Wood was the town that he ended up leading through the use of his magic gem that controls people, allows him to suggest and charm people. So here we are on the docks of that town. In Lowerl Wood, there are problems with food, and when you first start this campaign, you free the town from ogres who are trying to destroy this place, in part because it's allied with Maliki. And we find a famous character here, Category. And we can talk to her, and she'll tell us about different things we can do, give us different quests. Vandro Perth is here from the town. He's featured in the novels, Nord Gantara. So it's kind of neat. You get to see what this town is created like. and you help train people and get them up to speed. They're trying to rebuild from the attacks that took place. There's a shrine to Maliki here that you can go do as part of a weekly quest, and lots of heroic encounters. You can even do some fishing. There are trolls and all sorts of dangerous creatures off in the wilds, and some roaming giants. So again, helping out the 10 towns rebuild from this strange use of the ring, but we also get to see Canterbury, and actually Wolfgar appears here as well, and we get to work with them. And then finally, we go to the next to last area called Coldrun. In this area, we finally meet up with Artist Cimber.
We need to find the Ring of Winter.
And he gives us some information on the Ring of Winter and why everything is taking place. We begin to unravel the mystery and how they interpreted the story in Neverwinter. Here you can see both Wolfgar and Canterbury right here together. And we're hidden in this little ice or stone enclave in the middle of this frozen area. This map is really fun. It's what I used the still for at the beginning of the stream. There are a number of channels you can walk through, and icy areas in these mountains that we're in. You fight remoras, you fight giants of all kinds, and then you get to this area that has all of their ships. I've only explored part of this with this character, including one of the major quests, which is what I'll go off and do, because it's kind of fun. You get to use you get to meet the companions as part of the adventure, and that's kind of neat. Neverwinter has made extensive use of the companions, which is the name for all of the folks in the R.A. Salvatore novels, the different characters, Canterbury, Wolfgar, Bruenor Battlehammer, Drizzt Do'Urden. All of those make extensive appearances here. Actually, I'm going to switch mounts from my Drake to an appropriate frozen flail snail. Neverwinter is full of fun representations of different creatures. This one was gained through a winter event. We can have a ice-type flail snail that still shoots snot, but I guess frozen snot, all over the place and flails about. It's neat antennae. It leaves a nice gummy snail-like trail behind it. Pretty fun. So I think this is just an amazing looking zone. You get to look at these huge Viking longboat type ships that the frost giants use. They look amazing. You actually get to go on them. You have these Rhymefire golems that I really enjoyed in 4th edition a lot. They have, again, this game is modeled on 4th edition, so they have neat powers that they use that are quite tough to deal with. They will sort of explode in power, and they can freeze me in place or knock me back depending on which powers they use. I will respond with a burst of radiance here. Take them out, and you'll see when they explode and die, they will freeze me momentarily. So they look a little bit like those folks we saw in Bryn Shander. And my shield will protect me. That'll make me immune to the freezing effect. Kind of fun paladin powers. So we get to comb this coast and find different clues. Zuna is one of the Neverwinter made-up NPCs, and we get to talk to her and learn some things in this hideout. But we're going to go over here to look at the cool longboats and learn about what happened to the Ring of Winter. Sometimes I have to dodge these patrols. In these video games, they have a sort of aggro radius that has nothing to do with actual eyesight, so we can go by them and it's like we're not there. So we're going to sneak on board this ship is what this mission's all about. It's pretty fun. And if you have any questions about this, either during the stream or after a stream, you can always hit me up on Twitter or through my blog contact form and let me know what kind of questions you have about the lore, or if there are other areas of Neverwinter you want to see. It's taking some time to load. We're now moving from play where other players can be found to an instance that's just for us. this becomes eventually a repeatable quest.
More ships. It'll be a fleet soon if we don't make a move.
Then we move. I grow tired of sitting around.
So we see we're here with Wolfgar and Caddy Bree doing an assault on this ship. We also have Makos. He's a character that's part of the Neverwinter lore. Turn my audio a little higher here for turn this off. So this part's pretty simple. We're going to fight the giants. The giants are pretty neat. They have some nice rushing powers, though sometimes the rushing powers are a little bugged. You see, they head off in random directions instead of going towards us. Small chain coming out of me. That chain is due to an item I have, which is related to the Avernus content, and I sort of like the way the city is chained. We get to chain them to us. These are fun. These are runes, and if I step on them, things can happen to me. So they're using rune magic, which is a nice implementation of the lore of frost giants. Pretty neat to have these rune mages. So they often travel with either bards, that's this skull that beats this drum, or they have the rune guys that use rune magic on them. When you're fighting with these NPCs, they'll periodically put up fun little comments about what they're doing, which can be, some fun color. When this came out, it was pretty hard content doing these things. It was very possible to die if you were an average player. My character is not particularly strong, but it's been several years since this content released. So my character, even though it's not a particularly strong one, relative to my other characters, is still pretty strong. Frost Giants in 5th edition are all under a Frost Giant Jarl called Stovald, and in both Storm King's Thunder and in the Tomb of Annihilation, I was just reading, both of them have Droopy, who is a sort of lieutenant for Stovald of some sort. I don't know the exact title, but he's in the upper echelon of his people that he trusts, and he sends them to find the Ring of Winter. So he shows up in this adventure as well, just as he does in the hardback book. They do not show up. No, actually they do. There is a small area. There's a nice nod to this in the lore of Chult. Some more runes. In the Chult representation of the Neverwinter MMO, they have a part where you can see that frost giants have been there, which is fun, and it kind of remarks on how strange it is to see them there. So this is kind of fun. We have taken over the ship, and so the idea is that now we can go aboard it as if pretending we're taking over the ship, or we're using it to establish cover and get to this place called Fangbreaker Island. So we're gonna say, yeah, let's do it. Let's go there.
I would hold on to something if I were you.
Something like a magic source of wind. Harshnag appears in Storm King's Thunder. He's a big part of the story from here on out. We just met him for the first time here. For some reason, he's battling the other giants. Why could that be? He must be a good frost giant.
Let's see what you've got. Well met, friends. We must push forward and recover the Ring of Winter.
So Harshnag knows that the Ring of Winter could be here. And the place, we're here. This is the place where the Frost Giants are. Their seat of power, so we're taking them on at their base, Fangbreaker Island.
I see.
A whole bunch of these giants.
How do you know my name?
Let's see, they can deliver the pain. If I were not a very strong character, I'd be in some trouble. I recall dying here when this was first released. Characters are now my main focus. So Druffy, the Herald of Winter. So we say, sure, we'll just take him on. That should be easy, right? Looks pretty cool. Let's do it. Spoiler, this isn't going to go too well, but later on you do go on another mission and you are able to take on Druffy and defeat him. Or defeat her? Maybe Druffy's a she. Or are they? I'm not sure.
Stormall will usher in the age of frost giants. And you.
So you can see really nice implementation of the D&D lore. Really speaks to how the teams work together for Neverwinter between Neverwinter and D&D, or Cryptic, the company that makes the Neverwinter as well. They really have done some amazing parts in some of the lore of the game. Not every part of the game does such a good job of weaving the lore, but in general, these ones that are related to the D&D hardbacks are really very good. Pushed away by the magic frost wind that Druffy can command. Very anime-ish, enormous sword. This is quite the hard fight when you are playing it for real. Later when we do the actual dungeon, what they call a dungeon, with the big quest to defeat Druffy, it's a very hard battle. In this case, we kind of get a story you can't win because the story said so. We've all been there in a campaign like this. Alright, well, if we can't, let's run. Makos stays back. There's a big Neverwinter spoiler that Makos is in trouble here. Kind of hang back. So, we're told that we've got to run because the DM said so. Alright, we're on our way. Escape back to the boat. And we escape on the boat, but we had to leave Makos behind.
We must go. There.
Tell Celeste.
This story of Makos, it may look sort of cheesy here, but it really is actually one of the better stories that Neverwinter weaves. Makos appears in the trailer for the original Neverwinter release. He's instrumental when you're in the starting area, starting up a character. And so everything that happens to him, and especially to Celeste, is actually pretty well done. So it might look a little cheesy, kind of out of context, and maybe it is a little cheesy as well, but it's actually a pretty neat story overall. So yeah, so we're going to go back and we're going to tell Artist Cimber what we found out. That sets us on to the next stage of our quest. But I've already opened that access, which is that we then go from this area of Coldrun where all of the frost giants were operating to the far north and the sea of moving ice that's off the coast of the Ten Towns, so really far into the north. And we take that ship we've stolen, and we take it here, what we find is that, surprise, I mean, you know this if you've read the D&D novels, but some of the barbarians are actually nice. They're not all bloodthirsty and horrible. A lot of this is, antiquated colonial thinking in place, and unfortunately Neverwinter does kind of fall into that trap even further than it has to. So not only are some barbarians good and some bad, but these barbarians are, because of the giant onslaught and the freezing temperatures from the Ring of Winter, these barbarians are out of food, and they need us to help them. Those of us from the south in Neverwinter who have no idea how to survive in the winter. Yeah, it's our job to teach them how to fish. It's really weird. I mean, they kind of teach us to fish, but then we fish for them and give them food. It's really weird. So you go over here and you turn in fish and some things like that. So there are some angles to the story that when it first came out, a lot of us were scratching our heads as to how that was decided. But the main story is that we come here with Artis Cimber. We're working now with these barbarians that are sort of more associated with the barbarians that Wulfgar led in the past, if you follow the Drizzt events. And that's a neat story too. If you haven't read the original Drizzt novels, there's a nice story there about how Bruenor Battlehammer, the dwarf who is the friend of Drizzt the Drow Elf, Bruenor decides to save the life of a young barbarian and trains him, sort of binds him to his service for giving him his life. And Wulfgar, because barbarians follow codes, he accepts this and grows to sort of have a very different perspective on life. And when he trains with Drizzt Do'Urden, he gets even a greater perspective from someone that he thought would, of course, be an enemy, a drow. So Wulfgar eventually, with Drizzt's help, slays a huge white dragon and leads his tribe, and is a major part in opposing the forces that are besieging Icewind Dale as a result. So he continues to help us. We can see, here's Wulfgar over here, Catti-brie, and then they introduce a wizard. It's kind of obscured here, but this wizard here, Kavatos, joins us, and this is one of the barbarians. So this area is pretty neat. So before we were kind of like in a mountain area, and there was a coastline with some big ships. Now we're in this small area here. This is a really huge map. We're in this area here, and the idea is that we've magically cloaked our presence here so that we can find what all of the frost giants are doing. Since the Ring of Winter was not on Fangbreaker Island, we need to find where it is, and so we start looking through and figuring out where it might actually be, so we can get it back to Artis. And that's the last part of the story that they implement here. So it's a neat take on Storm King's Thunder. What I particularly like about this is that it doesn't spoil Storm King's Thunder. We get to play a sort of parallel adventure that plays off of it, but does not replace or give away what actually happens in the Storm King 5e adventure. That's awesome. If we do a piece on Chult, you'll see that they went the opposite direction there. If you play through all of the Chult content, it really does ruin the adventure in a number of ways, especially the big final way. So you have to be kind of okay with that if you're playing. In fact, even their trailers would spoil major parts of the adventure. So that was nice that for Storm King, there wasn't that sort of spoiler angle. So Maluk gives you a craft so you can go around on a boat. And that's one of the neat things about this area is Neverwinter, they do new things in addition to use the existing canon. So they give us these cool kayaks, and we get to go out on them. And there's a mode that turns you into your kayak. I've got a fairly cheap model. You can find nicer ones as you explore. And you get to go out into the sea of moving ice and explore all these different areas. It's really quite pretty. Again, cool adventure fodder, the idea that for some reason you have to go on maybe a smaller craft. I mean, stealing the frost giant ship's awesome. I like that idea, but you also could have reason to team up with barbarians and use their smaller boats that they grant you, maybe take on competing tribes, as you do in this adventure, in this game, and convince them to join you. There are all kinds of neat islands where the other barbarians live. There are also areas with undead and shipwrecks. That's one of the areas here. We'll get into some trouble here. Ooh, there they are. Try to not get into too much trouble. Just want to take a look. But you can see here there are ships that are left over from frozen people. There are a couple funny spoilers. There is a homage to the movie Castaway with a little sort of volleyball on one of the islands. But it is a really neat looking area with all of these cool frozen islands, giants and their ships. You do run into some little icebergs. Fortunately, it does not sink you. There's some neat angles to the experience you have as a player here, like going into these neat sort of underground, I don't know what we call, like little cave complexes where the water has made a channel through here. That's sort of fun. So exploring all of this is a lot of fun as you do the various quests. You can do things like there's a quest to take on these mephits, and so you pull them from the elemental ice and fight little ice mephits. There are barbarians that come here, and you pick up ancient runes to figure out what they mean, and how did they make these special trolls. Giants are in various places as well. The heroic encounters include a dragon turtle, and that one's not up right now, helping the elk tribe. There are fishing zones where you can fish different types of fish. Some of them are very rare, so if you want to get into it, you can like collect all the different fish types, which is kind of neat. And the giant boats are really neatly implemented. You can get on board by climbing the anchors. I may have approached it from the wrong side. Yeah, I did. Maybe it's the big oars. So we'll go around the ship here and climb on. So there's a lot to this whole zone. It is an enormous, enormous zone with a lot of neat ideas. The Aurora Borealis type effect in the sky is really neat. I find this very inspiring. I ran Storm King's Thunder as part of the playtest for 5th edition before the adventure came out. Maybe we'll share that. But that meant that I had not seen this when I ran it. I kind of wish I'd been able to see this for some inspiration. So here we are, jumping onto the boat, trying to sneak through. We are very bad at spotting people. So. Funny thing is, if you end up in combat and you jump off into the water, you die. But as long as no one caught you and you didn't enter combat mode, you just jump right back into the water. So yeah, that's kind of the major parts of what we have here. It's a pretty neat interpretation of this. At the end of it, you have returned the Ring of Winter to Artus, which can then lead to the natural progression of the 5th edition story where Artus goes on his next adventure. I'll save that spoil, if it is a spoil for you, for the time we cover that content. I hope you had fun with this stream. If you have any questions later on, let me know.